Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. We are starting our weekend off with watches, and everything is for sale. Today, leading off, we have the Tudor Black Bay GMT S&G. So this is the Black Bay GMT, but with the S&G treatment that it gained in 2022. So the original Tudor Black Bay GMT came out with a Pepsi bezel, all in steel. In 2018, it was kind of funny because that was the same year Rolex brought back the Pepsi bezel on its own GMT Master 2. This is a little bit of a quirky look as we have a combination of rolled yellow gold, solid yellow gold, and stainless steel with a sort of vintage Rolex root beer bezel treatment. Now we have micro texturing along the edge of the bezel. It is a GMT style bezel, so bidirectionally rotatable. It's used with the 24-hour hand, assuming you set that to Greenwich Mean Time. You can offset, so GMT minus, or you can add, so GMT plus, so you can read 1, 2, 3 time zones temporarily. Now it's got a water resistance here of 200 meters. This is quite water resistant despite not being a dive watch like the other Black Bays. I mentioned rolled gold, and the easiest place to see it is on the center links. I don't know how well you can see this, but the actual links inside the outer sheath of gold, those are steel. So the crown is made of rolled gold. The center links are made of rolled gold. That is, it's rolled around steel in a very thick layer. This is not plating. This is a solid, robust layer that will last decades. So keep in mind, this is very durable, if rarely seen in the modern era treatment of gold. Now the bezel itself is solid gold. So take heart, the most important part is genuine yellow gold. We'll do a lume shot here. No shortage of luminescence. And note all 4 hands loomed, so not only can you tell it's running in the dark, but you can actually see that secondary time zone. We have a simulated rivet style bracelet, a nod to the era in the 50s and early 60s when Tudor and Rolex shared not just cases, but also Rolex rivet bracelets. We have 3 pairs of divots in the clasp, so you can change the anchoring point of the bracelet with a strap tool. Inside the case, we have an automatic movement with 70-hour power reserve, a COSC chronometer certification, stop seconds, the dual time capability in 12 and 24-hour formats. It's got an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. It is very durable, and it is a Tudor Kinesi movement, so something developed by Tudor's own movement arm. Speaking of arms, let's put this one on mine. It's about 50 millimeters from lug to lug, so broad, but it also has pivoted end links, so it doesn't wear particularly large. If it had solid end links, it would be a massive watch. The watch is substantial. It definitely doesn't feel like an entry-level Rolex brand. It feels like the real thing, and of course, Tudor is not a junior brand in any real sense. Vintage and contemporary Tudor can be the beginning, middle, and end of your collection theme. You don't necessarily need to graduate to the senior brand within the house of the 5-pointed crown. Deployant clasp, clamshell lock, even have little ceramic spring-loaded pin snaps to keep the tolerances snappy over time. Lots to love here. Now, if you want a full bracelet and you want to spend a lot more money, well, with expense comes certain privileges, and the exclusive club of solid gold Royal Oak Jumbo owners is a small one. So this is a model that debuted back in 2017, full yellow gold. In 2016, AP started to embrace yellow gold again in the Royal Oak collection, and that's what we have here. So not only do we have a solid yellow gold case, clasp, and bracelet tandem, but we've also got a golden-toned petite tapisserie, which is the small hobnail. The Grand Tapisserie is the one that you find on like a 41 millimeter Royal Oak, and then the Mega is what you find on an offshore. The Mega is stamped, whereas the Petite and the Grand are cut on a pantograph. So you could see the vintage mimicry engine creating an incredibly intricate texture as it cut this dial slowly over a long period. Now, it does have white gold bolts in the bezel. Traditionally, the bolts in the bezel, and they are bolts, not screws, of a Royal Oak, they've always been white gold. And you can see here how they contrast nicely with the yellow gold. Taking a quick look in the dark, it's a well-loomed watch. It is sporty, but with a push-down crown and a 50-meter water resistance plus a vintage-style movement. I'm not going to describe this as the most sporting of sports watches. And when I talk about vintage-style movement, I mean the roots of this Audemars Piguet caliber 2121 are actually in a Jaeger-LeCoultre Abauche created expressly for the Holy Trinity and only ever used for the Holy Trinity from 1967 forward. So this is the movement that powered the original Jumbo of 1972. It also powered the inaugural Nautilus and the Vacheron 222. So a very impressive movement that's ultra thin. It's only 2.4 millimeters thick without the date, 3.05 with the date. You can see it's got a beryllium ring that runs all the way around and actually sits on 4 ruby rollers, so it can be cinched down super close to the base plate. Neither the mass nor the rotor will contact the movement. Gyromax style free sprung balance, and it's got a 40-hour power reserve, but it's the standard of finish and the exacting detail that are responsible for the reputation of this movement, probably also for the fact that AP no longer puts it in the jumbo. It created a movement called the 7121 for the newest jumbo, the 16202. That's a lot cheaper to make and quicker to finish. This is the one you want. It should also be noted that though the movement has JLC roots, by the time this watch was made, Audemars Piguet was building the movement in-house. It was not some sort of a customer caliber shipped over from the Valet de Jeu to the other side of the Valet. Of course, Audemars Piguet and JLC are neighbors. It's only 8.3 millimeters thick. It's nice and flat. It is larger than its rated 39 millimeter size, but that's kind of the nature of Royal Oaks in general. They always wear a size or two larger. I encourage you to think of this as a 41 millimeter round watch, and my wrist for reference is 16 centimeters circumference. Speaking of JLC, I've got one that's JLC all the way through, the watch as well as the movement. This is one of the rarest Reverso models ever made. Launched in 1998, I believe 98 for the 99 model year. It was only made through 2002. It's called the Reverso Memory, and the vast majority of these were made in steel with a strap. So this example in full yellow gold with factory bracelet is the rarest of the rare. Now I will wind this up. There's a couple things that makes this a very unusual Reverso. The first is that it's automatic, which back in the 90s was extraordinarily rare. The other thing is that both dials are luminescent, a feature uncommon on Reversos, but you can see right here, it does have a luminescent dial, all 3 hands. It also has another feature that's rare on Reversos, which is hacking seconds. And finally, you can see what I mean. This watch, luminescent on both sides, it's actually got an always-on flyback 60-minute chronograph. So as soon as you reset it, it starts up again. It's just like an Omega chronostop. And so we have this 60-minute chronograph on the back, we have the time on the front, we have a winding rotor sandwiched between the 2 dials, and given the size of the case, which is the Reverso Classique case, it's impressive that it's got a 50-hour power reserve. You can see the inner chassis has been engine turned, case back is satin brushed, and it is 23 millimeters wide by 38.6 millimeters lug to lug. And that's kind of small, but remember the Classique is the traditional men's Reverso size. And although the Grand Taille arrived in the 90s, this was not considered to be a women's watch by any means. You can see on my 16 centimeter wrist with the full bracelet, it actually has incredible presence and traditional elegance. A watch the size of a brick was not considered obligatory for good taste and refinement back in the 1990s. And so here we have one of the most unusual Reversos ever made, and what's likely its rarest form, full bracelet yellow gold, a really cool piece, caliber 862 powered Reverso Memory. Now this is an interesting watch because you may be familiar with the Vacheron Constantin Harmony collection, and you're probably familiar with the Dual Time if you know the Harmonies. They are watches inspired by the watches made at Vacheron in the first third of the 20th century, back when it was by no means clear that the wristwatches of the future were all going to be round. The wristwatch was in its infancy. But what makes this white gold example special is it is part of the 2015 launch year, which was also the 260th anniversary of Vacheron. You can see that right on the case back. As a result, we get this extraordinary hammered and relieved engraved 22-karat rotor that was specific to the 260th anniversary. And then on the dial is white with polished hands and blue numerals, again, exclusive to the 2015 anniversary model. You can see there's a second time zone there with a day-night indicator, so you know if you're looking at AM or PM. There is a hacking seconds function, and then underneath that extravagant rotor, we have a Geneva hallmark Vacheron manufacturer automatic caliber 2460 DT with 5-position adjustment and a 40-hour power reserve, and this rotor really is worth the price of admission by itself. But you can see Geneva hallmark on both case and balance cock. Everything is executed to that standard. This just has one of the best rotors on any watch in the last 25 years. So let's throw this on the wrist. It's a big watch, though it's rated at 40 millimeters, and in theory, that's not huge. Being tonneau-shaped, it doesn't even matter that it's under 50 millimeters lug to lug. It wears large. I encourage you to think of this as a 42 or 43 millimeter round watch, because that's definitely how it feels. But being a one-year version of a fairly rare model makes this the ultimate in exclusivity. You're unlikely to ever see another one. Oh, full clasp, double deployant right there. Now, jumping into the world of Patek Philippe, there's a couple of different ways to do a travel time watch. One is to give you 2 time zones like the Vacheron. The other is to give you many time zones all at once. Using the Louis Coutier system, first developed in the 1930s, Patek Philippe's created this, launched in 2022 and now discontinued. This is the last of the 5230 world times that originally debuted back in 2016. So the platinum model, 38.5 millimeters. You know it's a platinum Patek. It has the diamond between the lugs. Nice and weighty despite not being a big watch. You can see that lovely blue guilloche at center, and then 24 reference cities representing the 24 principal time zones of the world. So you can see right now, if I'm in Moscow, it's 8 a.m., and you can tell that because the little 24-hour reference ring adjacent to Moscow, it says 8. You can also see that it has a semicircle in silver, the places approximately where it's day, and then in blue, the places approximately where it's night. Now, if I want to change my time in Moscow, I want to change it to 9 a.m. I just make the adjustments, and you can see that the reference ring moves in the opposite direction of the hands. Now I can see it's 9 a.m. in Moscow. I can see it's 9 p.m. in Anchorage. I can see that it is 4 in the afternoon in Sydney. I just read my reference city all the way around. If I want to change my reference city, I use a system co-developed by Coutier and Patek Philippe, and say I want to go to Tokyo. Put Tokyo at the top. Now the watch has done all the math. Full deployant clasp, single fold, also platinum, of course. And on the back, caliber 240 HU Air Universel. It is an automatic micro rotor that gives you the thin profile of a manual, but with the convenience of an automatic. 48-hour power reserve, extremely handsome finishing. A big open case back, because we're not blocking the movement with a winding bridge or rotor. The rotor's sunken down. A 3 Hz beat rate, free-sprung Gyromax style balance. Adjusted in 6 positions, accurate to -3 + 2 seconds a day, with an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. Lots to love here. You can see the lugs are stepped out dramatically from the case, and unlike the predecessor, the 5130, this doesn't have a crown guard structure, so it looks and wears true to its size, 38.5. Really good watch, and really a watch a man or a woman can wear and appreciate. Fantastic piece, the heart and the soul of Patek Philippe, a long-running series, the world time. Also a long-running series, depending on when you start the clock. Of course, the original IWC BR, based on the Type 52 TSC movement, was issued to the Luftwaffe. Yes, that Luftwaffe in 1940. Yes, that 1940. And while that type of marketing always left me a bit perplexed, there's no denying that there are a lot of appealing complications in the big pilot's watch line. And if we count the original 2002 model as the beginning of the line, and we don't hark back to the 30s, then we still have a pretty long-running model line, and a Big Pilot Perpetual calendar gives you that classic Big Pilot 46.2 millimeter case here in stainless steel. But we have an evergreen dial with the Kurt Klaus Perpetual calendar system, which is as easy to set as a date just with a quick set. So you just turn the crown, and everything moves in sync, even the moon phase. And you just adjust the correct date for the month you're in. It even monitors the year and the decade, the century and the millennium. Moon phase for the northern and southern hemispheres. We've got a coaxial running seconds display over at 9 o'clock with the day of the week. And then we have coaxial power reserve indicator and date at 3 o'clock. The watch features 7 days of power reserve when fully wound, and it does have a stop seconds or hacking function. The crown is massive, 10.8 millimeters in diameter. By itself, that's just the crown. Now, the watch is 60 meters water resistant, and with a rubber strap and a screw-down crown, 60 meters is enough for surface swimming, so you can absolutely take this swimming. Recently, IWC has done something I really like. They've implemented quick-release straps, but they haven't created some sort of proprietary system like Cartier or Hublot, where you have a quick-release strap, but you're kind of boxed into using the one that the manufacturer provides. Here, we've got a quick release system that's built into the strap. So all you do is you just push the trigger, you release it, it comes off. That's a conventional 22mm lug and spring bar. So any 22mm strap will fit on this. So you get the convenience of a quick release, but you're not locked into using the strap that IWC forces you to buy. And then it just pops right back in, just like a car seatbelt buckle. On the reverse side, you can see this is the latest 52,000 series of the 7-day automatic, and I should say 7 days is now provided by 2 barrels. So 54 joules, it's immensely complicated. The single barrel on the older versions of the 5,000, 50,000, and the 51,000 series, the single barrel gave you the same amount of power reserve, but it tended to gallop and gain a lot of time when fully wound, and then start losing a lot of time when you got down to 48 hours remaining. With the 2 barrels, that's not really a problem anymore, it's fixed. And you can see that we now have a full ceramic, that's pawl and wheel Peloton winding system, developed by famed IWC watchmaker Albert Peloton in the late 40s and implemented in the early 50s. It was the forerunner of every pawl-based winding system, such as Magic Lever, and Magic Lever, in turn, inspired many knockoffs, but this is the granddaddy of them all. With ceramic, there's no danger of dirt or debris on the movement. This version, with the twin barrels and the full ceramic Peloton system, also has a 4 Hz beat rate. This movement started slow beat, 18K, in 2000, and then it stepped up to 21.6, and now it's 28.8. It's a big movement. Over 37 millimeters, it perfectly fills this case back. On the wrist, too much watch for me. 46.2 millimeters, but 56.5 lug to lug. I can't really pull this off, but if your wrist is 17 centimeters circumference or larger, you're gonna find this is a good, agreeable fit. Bethune makes beautiful things, and in small volumes. And even today, the company is making fewer than 400 watches a year, which is quite exclusive when you consider Journe is redlined at 1,000, and Richard Mille is probably making close to 6,000 at this point. So this is one of those fewer than 400. DB28 XP Starry Sky, this is a model that debuted in 2020, and unofficially it was the 10th anniversary DB28. Of course, the original DB28 of 2010 won the GPHG Aiguille d'Or the next year, which is basically Best Picture at the Oscars of watchmaking. Here we have a 43mm ultra-thin case. XP in the name is for extra plot, extra thin. Now you can see the watch has variable geometry spring-loaded floating lugs out to 54.4 millimeters, now compressed to 50.4, so it'll fit a smaller wrist. You can see micro-light engraving on the case band. Denis Flageolet, the watchmaking co-founder and lead on all designs at Bethune, he wanted engraving that didn't look like, say, a Breguet rosette pattern. So he went with this, and he applied it to the dial as well as the case. And Bethune makes case, dial, and movement, all 3 in-house, including the balance wheel and these lovely rose gold hands with deltoid indices. Microlight is on the dial, which is a fired blue piece of titanium. The fire and the heat and the oxygen turn the titanium blue. Bethune then sets these little white gold dowels into drillings in the dial to create the starscape. The balance, titanium and white gold masses, one of 10 patented by Denis. Every time he wants to increase the total percentage of overall mass in the rim, reduce the effect of aerodynamic drag on timing, and above all, he wants to reduce the effect of temperature on timing. Twin barrels, manual wind, 6-day power reserve, and the barrels cannot be accidentally overwound due to a self-correcting, self-adjusting mechanism. 4 Hz beat rate, overcoil style breathing, but not an overcoil hairspring. It's actually a hairspring shaped by hand, cut into 2 pieces. Each one is independently shaped, then clamped back together. This centers the mass 360 degrees radially, so in any position, the watch is going to keep the same time. So it's got all the advantages of an overcoil, but not the thickness or the shock susceptibility. The watch is thin, and although it's a 43, it wears small. You can see on my wrist it's a really good fit. You can see and appreciate how those lugs work to make it ergonomically a dream, and it'll fit underneath any cuff. This one's on an awesome strap. You can see it is a Jean Rousseau strap. Jean Rousseau makes the OEM straps for Bethune. Huge symmetrical rectangular scales on the top, the finest cut of the animal, and then we've got a genuine threading, stitching of rose gold. That is a cable, a threaded cable of rose gold. And then on the bottom, we have rubber to protect the leather long-term against the wrist, so this strap could last up to a decade on the wrist. A very special watch with a strap to match a pin buckle so you can quickly make adjustments. This is not a complicated watch, well, at least not mechanically, but I have to conclude with what I believe to be the most impressive watch in today's show, the Patek Philippe Golden Ellipse 5738/51G. This launched in 2021. This is one of the craft art pieces from Patek and an application piece that requires approval from both your dealer and Patek management. So the Golden Ellipse originally launched in 1968, named Golden because the height to width ratio is approximately 1.618, or the golden ratio. It doesn't come perfectly on target, but it's very close. This watch is only 40 millimeters lug to lug, 7 millimeters thick, and 34.5 wide. It is made of white gold, and it does actually have an automatic micro rotor movement. The movement in this watch looks exactly like the movement in this watch, and it allows it to be super thin because of the micro rotor. We have an onyx cabochon on the crown, and then a dial made of solid white gold, but not just. You could see it's been exquisitely engraved with a florizan, or combination of banknote scrolling, flowers, petals, vines, and volutes, and you can see how deeply engraved it is. And then all of the hollows around the engravings have been scooped out in a champlevé form, filled with black glass-based or vitreous paint, and fired at 800 degrees Celsius up to 20 times to combine freehand engraving on a white gold dial with grand faux enamel in black. And being only 40 millimeters and lugless across the wrist, it wears super compact and comfortable, not just for men and women, but hell, a child could wear this. A small dog could wear this. This is an incredibly compact watch. It fits under any cuff. And in my opinion, the combination of the white metal case and the dark dial is punchy, powerful. It's got a lot of gravitas and presence in spite of not being large, and that is the sign of truly great design. If you love any watch you saw today and you want to know more, please just reach out directly to me, tmosso at the1916company.com for pricing.